Today, when I think of the brain, which is the crown jewel of the human body, and on understanding which you become more human and compassionate to the fellow beings, by understanding human brain, you understand how magnificent is the God's creation of the 3 pound structure in the seat of the intelligence, the interpreter of the senses, initiator of body movements, and almost the seat of or the head office of behavior. Therefore, this wonderful structure, that is brain, understanding which will help you to love human beings and your fellow beings alike. Loving the fellow beings is the primary objective with which God has created everyone. Therefore, each portion of the brain has certain function of its own. Understand, there are 3 brains in a human body: the forebrain, the midbrain, and the hindbrain. The hindbrain is a very familiar structure where the cerebellum is contained, and it is the upper part of the spinal cord, the brainstem, and the cerebellum. The hindbrain is responsible for respiration and heart rate. Therefore, understand how important is the hindbrain is to the human body, because now we find many people are suffering with heart diseases. Hence, taking care of the hindbrain is very important, my dear friends. The cerebellum, you may have watched some people losing balance and falling down. That is because the cerebellum is somewhere wrong. The cerebellum is the only brain structure which is controlling the movement. And when you play a piano or hit a tennis ball, actually cerebellum is the hero who is acting. The uppermost part of the brainstem is the midbrain. I told you there are 3 types of brain: the hindbrain, the midbrain, and the forebrain. So, midbrain is located above the cerebellum. The uppermost part of the brainstem is the midbrain. Some reflex actions are there, like eye movements and other voluntary movements. You are having a shock which is reflected in the midbrain. Therefore, midbrain is responsible for controlling certain reflex movements like shock, some jerking reactions, and voluntary movements, even the eye movements. That is, you want to see a far sighted body which is being controlled by the midbrain. And now come to the forebrain. There are a lot of things to be talked about the forebrain. The cerebrum, which is the most familiar part of the brain, is located in the forebrain. When see picture of the brain, usually the cerebrum is what we notice. It's the topmost part of the brain and is the source of all intelligence, memories, planning, imagination, thinking, reading books, recognizing friends, playing games, all are played all at once by the cerebrum. The cerebrum is the actor which performs different roles which make us really human intelligent brain and real human intelligent man. Cerebrum is usually split into 2 hemispheres by a deep fissure. That is, there are 2 halves of the cerebrum. What are those 2 halves of the cerebrum? The cerebrum is divided into the left cerebrum and the right cerebrum. The right cerebrum is controlling the left portion of the body, and the left cerebrum is controlling the right portion of the body. The two hemispheres, thus the right cerebrum and the left cerebrum, are the mirror images of each other, but they are different. The ability to construct words occur in the left hemisphere, that is the left brain. Usually we call it as left brain. The controlling the reasoning skills, that is the logical skills, are occurring in the right hemisphere. That is the reasoning ability, controlling the reasoning ability or trying to think about a logical way is always conducted in the right hemisphere. Then there is some cerebral cortex, which is the coating of the surface of the cerebrum and the cerebellum. A stroke in the right hemisphere of the brain can leave the left arm and leg paralyzed. That is what I have already told you, that the right hemisphere keeps the control of the left portion of the body. Cerebral cortex is coating the surface of the both the cerebrum and the cerebellum. Latin for cerebral cortex is bark. That is, bark is the Latin word for cortex. Now, the gray matter, we always refer to gray matter. This is the cerebral cortex. And why this is happening is that the cortex is losing the insulation. The nerves in this area become less insulated. That's why it is gray. And rest of the brain appear to be white. So, moving on to the next one, which is the geography of thought. There are certain lobes in the brain: frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, occipital lobe. These four lobes are located in the cortex. There is motor cortex and somatosensory cortex. Which are these? Let us explain. The sections or lobes have each having different functions. The frontal lobe is directly located behind the forehead. This helps in planning a schedule. You want to go somewhere, you plan a schedule. You are imagining about the future, you are planning about the future. This is being done in the frontal cortex and frontal lobe. The arguments which you make, this is coming out of the frontal lobe. And this frontal lobe acting is as the short term storage sites. Something we have to keep in the mind while the ideas are being consolidated and coordinated and thought about. This is like the cache area in the computer. Short term storage is located in the frontal lobe. And the rearmost portion of the frontal lobe is the motor cortex. This helps in planning, controlling the movements or intentional movement. In general, movement like moving your arm. You want to move your arm. The motor cortex, which is the rearmost the portion of the frontal lobe, is helping you. You want to kick a ball. The motor cortex, which is located on the rearmost portion of the frontal lobe, is acting in on behalf of you. After two sections behind the frontal lobe is the parietal lobe. You are doing an arithmetic and you are reading something. This is being done by the parietal lobe. The reading and doing arithmetic are the functions of the parietal lobe. Then there is the somatosensory cortex. This somatosensory cortex, the forward part of the lobes and the behind of the motor areas. This somatosensory cortex is involved in understanding about the temperature, feeling of temperature, taste, touch, and movement from the rest of the body. The rest of the body movement is reflected, and the sense about the temperature, the taste, the touch, all are located in the somatosensory cortex. Now, occipital lobe, which is at the back of the brain, what is its function? The occipital lobe is matching whatever you watch with the imagination in the memory. The image stored in the memory is being matched with whatever you watch. Damage to this occipital lobe can cause blindness. So, blindness is resulting from damage to this occipital lobe. The temporal lobe is the last lobe of the human brain. It helps to listen music and appreciate the music, and it keeps the memories with respect to the music. The music from the ears reach the temporal lobes, and the memories associated with the music help in understanding about the music. The next portion of the brain is the inner brain. Hypothalamus and thalamus are located here. These are the emotional portions of the brain. Hypothalamus helps you to get up in the morning, and during a job interview or a test you feel tensed. That is because of hypothalamus. So this is the emotional centers, and when you become angry or unhappy, the mood swings, all happens because of the hypothalamus. And thalamus, the clearing house of information between the spinal cord and the cerebrum. Thalamus is the center which is acting as the passing force, that is clearing house of information from to the spinal cord and the cerebrum. Then there is the hippocampus. The nerve cells leading from the hypothalamus and the thalamus are the hippocampus. The tiny nub acts as a memory indexer. Memories are sent to the cerebral hemisphere by this hippocampus. This is there for the long-term storage of the brain. The hippocampus is like the hard disk of the computer. It is the storage of the secondary memory of the brain. The basic ganglia are clusters of nerve cells surrounding the thalamus. They are responsible for initiating movements. You are moving only because of this basic basal ganglia, which is there in the inner brain. If this basic ganglia is not working, then Parkinson's disease, which is a tremor, rigidity, and stiff, shuffling walk in the nerve cells, Parkinson's disease is happening because of the damage to the basal ganglia. The brain and the rest of the nervous system are composed of different types of cells. Functional unit of the cell is the neuron. Sensations, movements, thoughts, and memories and feelings are the result of signals that originate from the neurons. So, neurons is the most important sensation part of the human brain. I hope you enjoyed a very short video on the structure of the brain and functions of different portions of the brain. With this, I hope you will appreciate me in taking this information. Thank you. Bye.